Hi guys, in this tutorial we will see how to handle multiple complex input fields. So let me show you the output of our that code which we have understood in our previous tutorial. So this was our previous tutorial that whenever we write anything, it is basically going to display these values with our hello world. So this was the code that we have seen in our previous tutorial, but you can see that this is a huge code just to handle two text fields. So we have now to basically abbreviate this code and make it short. The very first thing that we have to do is we have basically to minimize that use state. These are 4 use states, and you can imagine that if we have 10 input fields, these use states would be 20. So this would be a huge code, and now we have to basically minimize that code. So how can we do that? Here I am just taking const, and here I have to take I am just making it comment as we don't need it now. We are just taking a new here use state data, set data, and its initial value should be empty. So how can we initialize all of these text fields as empty just in one use state? So here we have to play now with another thing which is known as name. So let me first copy that code and paste it again, so that now you may have here we have written value which basically we don't need now, and I will tell you, just wait for the moment. And here I am just taking name is equal to, now we have name, here I am just taking name, and here ID, and here I am just taking PSW, which is password basically. So at this point of use state, we have basically to pass an object. So if we want to play with multiple elements in a single use state, so we have to write here curly braces, because all these values would be shown just as a single object name, and here I am just going to make here empty, and the second thing was ID is also empty, and the third thing was PSW, it was also empty. Now we have basically initialized name, ID, and PSW as empty. So these are basically names that we have here in this code. Here we have name as same name, and ID and PSW which is basically password. No, we basically don't need, we cannot fetch that data in such a way, but we have to take that object. All these values are now in this single object. So here is the same thing that we have to do. I'm just writing here data dot name. This is an object, and name is an element inside that object, and here is the same thing that we have to do, data dot ID, and here we have to write data dot PSW. So we have here names and value which are done now. Now we have basically to play with onChange, and we have to write the same function on onChange. I'm just writing Control D and I'm taking the same function. Changes, I have changed the name of that function. I have written on change. The changes function is called. So no, I don't need that code. I'm just taking here fat arrow function, const changes is equal to, and here again is equal to, and fat arrow function, and basically we have to pass here something because this is on change function. Here it is passing any object, and this object is passed as E, and here I have to write, let me show you if it is working or not. So I have to just write here console.log. Here I am just playing changed. Just press Ctrl S and move to our code. It is here showing the error that set new name is undefined. Let me remove that code from here, and from that point just press no Ctrl S, and now you can see that all the errors are went. So here I have to go in console, and whenever I click here you can see that here that function is called, and at the same case when I click here that function is basically also called, and same for the case of our third text field. Let me show you. I have clicked here and changed function is called successfully. So now you can come to know that basically this function which is changes is successfully called by all the fields. Now what we have to do here, whenever this function is called, we have to check if our value is from that name or ID or PSW text field. Now how can we check it? So let me make here e dot target. Basically with the help of that target property we can have a lot of things that we can get. Here I am just writing console.log to show you how is it basically working, and here I am just going to pass name. So let me first show you what is basically name here. It will show the name of the text field to whom I have make changes. Just press Ctrl S and move to our output. Here we are in console, and now you can see that whenever I click on here it is showing as name, and whenever I click here it is showing here ID, and here when I click here it is showing PSW. These are basically the same names that we have written in our text field. So now you can see that we have successfully got the values of these names, and let me show you more that what things we can get here. Console.log e.target dot value console.log e.target dot placeholder. I can also get the value of placeholder, Let me save it and move to our output. Just refresh that page, and here when I click on that text field, now you can see that we have name as well as value and full name. This is here G. These are basically the values that we have pressed. You can see. Just let me refresh that page. Let me show you again. Here I have just pressed A, and now the value is A and the name is same name, and full name is our placeholder. Same for the case of second text field and third text field as well. So with the help of target, you can see that we have a lot of values that can be getable. So here basically we don't need to play with placeholder. Here we need a value as well as name. So you can see that name property is different for all the text fields. This is same name, and this is ID, this is PSW, and if we had multiple text fields like tens or hundreds, all of these text fields names should be different because we have to play with that name property. And here I am just going to take const name is equal to, here I am just going to take the name. If any text field is pressed, Control V, whenever any text field is basically pressed, the value of that name would be stored in this variable which is of const type. Here I have to take const and I have to write here value is equal to e.target dot value, and also minimize that code. I have erased that code now. Now you can see that we have basically name and value variables, and these values would be basically seen. We can save these values in this name. Whenever any change occurs in our any text field, this function is called, and whenever this function is called, it is passing an object, and this object dot target dot name, we can get the name. We have written the same variable because we don't want to confuse that what are basically this first variable and this second variable. So I have written the same name as we have here name, and same value as we have that value variable. So here I am just going to console dot log to show you if it is working or not. I am just going to display name. Just press Ctrl S. Here I am just typing A, and you can see that the text field which is named as name is basically making changes, and this text field which is named as ID is now making changes, as well as our third text field PSW. So now we have basically successfully stored these values in these two variables. Now what can we do? We basically need here value, but we have to measure and check. We have basically get these values, but we don't know what text field is basically working on. So that's why we have used name variable to check which name is basically going to match. So let me here make if else condition. If name is equal to, here I am just writing name. If this name is equal to that first text field, now what we have to do, I'm just writing here curly braces, and inside these curly braces, now I have to basically set the values. I'm just writing name. Here I'm just going to change the name. I have to just write here double E so that this variable and this variable would be same, and it may also confuse you. So here I'm just writing name is equal to, we have compared, and here I have written name, and I am just giving the value of that name as value. So same, we have basically to return that code. So just press Ctrl X and here type return. And how can we return? Basically we have to write here curly braces, Ctrl V, and this is how can we basically display. No, same code, copy that code, Ctrl C, and here I am going to paste it 2 times, Ctrl V, and here I am writing else if, and here in the case same as if, and here I have to just write it is not as name is not basically the name. Then what can it be? It can be ID, and the second thing, it can be PSW, and here I am just going to write ID. If it is ID, if the name variable is matching to the name of that ID, here we don't need to write name, but I am just writing here ID, which is same as we have at above. So here I am just comparing PSW. If the name is equal to PSW, which is our third text field, what you have to do here, PSW, and let me tell you what is basically happening. I am just saying that if the name is equal to that name that we have given is equal, means if both of them would be matched, what we have to do, we have to basically change the value or update the value with that name, that ID and that PSW. These are nothing but just our values here. All these are values, this is value. And now you can see that we type anything, but it is not showing here anything. Why is it not showing anything? It is a challenge for you that what is basically the reason it is not writing anything here. So you can see all the code here. What was basically the issue? You have seen all the code with me, and I have told you hundreds of times before this tutorial that we have basically data, and data values, all the values are basically initialized as empty, but we have not used here set data. We have only used if name is equal to if name matches, then what to do, then it would return that code, and you should have to write everything, all the code inside. Let me make it Control X, and here I'm just going to use here set data, and inside set data I'm just going to take callback function, which is also as fat arrow function, and here I have to write all the code, Control V, and just press Control S and move to our output. And here if you write anything, you can see that we are able to type anything here, and it is displaying here all the code. So this was basically all that we have to use here. Set state, this is initial state, and this is basically our set state of useState. So we have here compared if it matches with that code and that code as well. So what to do, all that code is. So one thing more, that it is not necessary we have that name and that name should be equal. We can write different. I'm just writing NAM. Let me show you. Here I would now compare with NAM, and all the remaining code would be same, because this name should be equal to that value, which is our initial value. Just press Ctrl S and move to our code. Here you can see that the code is still working, and I have told you all the possibilities, that what things are possible to do with our this text fields. I have told you that how to use set data, which is basically our set state of our use state, and here we are going to make the changes. We have to use here colon. This is just because of this is an element of that object. We have passed here that this is a complete object till that point. So inside this object we have these elements. So this was all about today, and I am going to remove that code now and going to minimize that code to show you how much is it basically. You can see that this is much short code. We have used a single use state and initial values of that data. This is object and elements. So here I have used changes, which is basically called whenever changes occur in our text fields, and this is our set data. Whenever we call that changes, the set data would update these values with that changes. So here I have used submit, and inside submit I have not used anything. Basically I don't gonna use it right now. I am just going to take dynamically values, because it would make a lot of code and you will be confused. So I will tell all that code and what to write inside that submit in my next tutorial. So for the time being I am just going to display values here. Here I have to write data.name, and here data.id, here data.psw. Now all these things are showing with hello. Ctrl S and move to our output. You can see that it is dynamically getting the values and displaying with hello. We have a mistake, that whenever we work with that state, this is basically going to disturb in sometimes. Let me show you. It is not displaying here now. So what is basically the problem? Whenever I call that, it is showing here, but not the remainings are showing. So if I move in my console, let me show you the error. It is showing that the values that we have passed are not controlled, but only some values are controlled. A component is changing a controlled input to be uncontrolled. Let me show you what to do now. Here we have basically to use our previous values as well, that when this name value is going to update, the remaining values should also be controlled at the same time. So here I have to write ID, and what to pass with that ID, let me show you with the help of Google. I have to use here previous value useState, set state previous value, set state previous value, and now how to get previous value, all that code is here, but let me move here inside Stack Overflow. It is showing that how basically we can get the values of set state. All these values are basically previous values, so it is making you more confused, I think so. Let me move in our text editor. It is just here, you can study here that how can we write previous value. I'm just passing here val, and this val is basically our previous value storing. This is here an object, and this object is pointing to our previous object that we had. So here I am just going to write id is equal to val dot id. It is basically showing the previous value, that previous value dot id, that it is showing object previous object dot value means previous object's value is now initialized to that id. I have to write psw val dot psw. Now I am going to just copy it, Control C, and paste it here, Control V. Oh no, I have to paste it here and here as well. I have to remove that PSW, and here I have to write now val dot name. Here I have to write val dot name, and we have to remove here id. id was basically storing our previous value. This is storing our previous value as well as this, but this is storing our new value, and this value is going to match with that value variable. Control S and move to our code, and here you can see that error has gone. All the values are now controlled by us, and now you can see that everything is going to show here. So this was basically now controllable by React at the same time. So before it was uncontrolled and making a clash between input types. So this was all about today, and let me make a little bit overview so that you might come to know clearly. We have basically here a useState, and inside useState we have used here as an object. These elements are passed as an object. All these elements are of input field. These are just value, and here now this is object, and all these are elements of that object. I have made a changes function, which is basically called whenever any change occurs in our any text field, and here I have fetched the name and value of that text field in which we are going to make changes. So now here I have used set state, and this set state is basically comparing if any text field name, if any text field value is going to change. So here we are just comparing if that name is going to match with our first text field or our second text field or our third text field. So this code would be done at the same time respectively, depending on the name that we have, what text field which is basically going to changes.